Welcome to HIT Podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. This week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions, and this is part 2 in our series. We are live at the CAHR conference, shooting from the booth, grabbing attendees, grabbing speakers, and cutting together the sights and sounds. If you missed part 1, go back to last week. Check out part 1. These are the highlights live from the conference. Enjoy the episode. Dean, thanks for joining the podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So we're here at the CAHR conference, and what I'm trying to do is capture sights and sounds, right? So we've been pulling in a lot of the human resources practitioners and attendees and speakers. One of the awesome things about coming to an event like this, it's also the expo hall, and it's meeting people that basically said, I have a solution I think HR should at least be aware of, right? I'm not necessarily here to move mountains and sell you, so to speak, but I'd like for you to know what we do and see if you think it's a fit. And as we walked up and down, you guys have such a creative solution. So do you mind me just kind of turning over the mic and letting you give us sort of the quick high level, the elevator pitch? Like, talk to me about Pop-Up Smiles, man. What an interesting concept.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so I founded the company back in 2019. I just thought, I've owned a dental brick and mortar practice since 2007. Yeah. And so, that's been around for decades now. Yeah. But just as time has gone, everybody kind of wants convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, with this whole Amazon thing going on.
Sure.
And a lot of mobile companies popping up.
Yep.
But why not dentistry?
Yeah.
Everybody needs some form of dentistry as, at least like teeth cleaning,
sure,
X-ray exam, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah. What type of adoption rate do you see people taking? Because I'll give you a chance to respond to the first criticism I would have, but it's like, feels like dentistry, at least for some people, is maybe a little intimate.
Yep.
I like my dental hygienist.
Yep.
So the employer, you can set it up if you want, but harumph, I'm not going, right?
Yeah. And we get a little bit of pushback. Some people are committed to their dentist,
right,
or dental hygienist. I understand that. I'm the same way with certain things too.
Yep.
And so, but the cool part about this, I guess, by our service is we get to treat people that don't have a dental home.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, well now you guys are here, I'm going to get it done.
Right.
And so, that's been actually a majority of
the one that would have otherwise maybe been kind of foregoing treatment, or just they'll see whoever their sister sees or whoever, right? Yeah. And there's enough of them out there, I imagine, but can you speak on that? Like, what, even anecdotally, what percentage of people are open in your experience or maybe in your data to seeing, I don't want to call it a random dentist, but a dentist I don't know?
Honestly, it's actually been a pretty good rate.
Good for you.
It's more, I think they're like really wowed by the innovation, like a different way of seeing it done. And again, I think a lot of people love the convenience. I think a lot of companies, or even people that sign up, they do a little bit of research before they see us.
Sure.
So they've seen, positivity about it.
Yeah.
So our reputation is great, and we're there for convenience, but we're really big on patient care, patient relationship, and doing, awesome customer service.
So this might be like a silly logistical question, but like literally, what do you bring out? You have like a big old chair, and you have all the water pick stuff. Like, what do you bring out?
Yeah. So we have a Sprinter van with all our portable equipment. So, I thought about this concept back in 2008, but I didn't launch it until 2019 because mobile dentistry has been around for a while. Okay, there's you do like community events, or you go out to, Africa.
Yeah.
They'll have portable equipment in order to do that.
Yeah.
But it's very rugged.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's been sophisticated.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I started in 2019. Also with the technology, digital dentistry, digital imaging, cloud-based softwares. But what we do is, we bring our equipment with our van, and then we'll go to a company. We'll find a conference room or meeting room, an open space where we can set up shop.
So in your relationship with your clients, obviously you're saying you start on finding the right people, plugging those people in, and then it goes all the way through to keeping those people.
Yeah.
Who are the conversations at the client level that you're speaking with about the initiatives, the strategies, like how are you impacting their retention? And we'll go backwards to recruitment, but I'm really interested in how you can say, no, I help keep employees too.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at what are they doing today to keep them, and usually it's if they're a small business, right? People are wearing a lot of hats and they're getting burnt out, which is a huge buzzword right now, but it's true, right? There's only so much time people have in a day, and when they're taking on a lot of responsibilities and not feeling that appreciation, they're feeling overworked and undervalued.
So how do you help employers identify and then mitigate or change that?
Yeah, so it's looking at, so what are they doing today, and then how do we change that? And so it's evaluating, analyzing where they're at, and then coming up with some action items. So that could be performance management, quarterly conversations, or even starting just on annual conversations, because sometimes they're not even doing that. And then taking it to maybe mid-year and annual, and then going to quarterly. So
when someone's doing it right, what are your thoughts on the cadence for how frequently? Is this like a manager versus employee conversation that you're talking about with respect to reviews?
Yeah, manager and their team, one-on-ones. I really encourage weekly conversations, right? Just like your podcast, those 15-minute, those bite-sized check-ins to see, hey, how can I support you? What are you working on? What challenges are coming up? And where do you want to go? And how can I help you get there to be that partner in their career development?
Yeah, so Patrick Lencioni is the kind of like 5 dysfunctions of a team guy, but also wrote some books on meetings and like frequencies of meetings. And there's some that might be a daily meeting, some that might be weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual, right? And they grow in the scope of off-site and multi-day and big picture strategy down into, just like you said, tasks, what are you working on, how do I support you, sort of a thing. Do you have kind of a prescription that you loosely try to follow? How much would it vary from client to client if you were able to design the ideal kind of meeting schedule, manager managing?
Well, yeah, I think it's having weekly meetings, those 15-minute, those bite-sized, having team meetings once a week as well, so you have that collaborative aspect, and then doing quarterly conversations. And again, they're just a step above just that check-in. It's really like, okay, what goals did we set and how are we doing on a quarterly basis? And then it would be those mid-years where we're looking more at the KPIs being driven to the team.
Key performance indicators?
Yes, and then the annual review. Because I think a lot of times if people just have one review, they're getting to the end of the year and they're hoping, hey, I want that pay raise, or they haven't had really any of those difficult conversations that people avoid.
Or the manager can't possibly keep 365 days worth of stuff in their head, so it's got recency bias, and you're just like,
Absolutely.
Before we get to the book, so the session today was actually, I did a switcheroo on them, and we talked about HR as a culture catalyst. So technically online it's called like the tool that HR needs or something like that. But I changed it up, and I think that HR really should be a culture catalyst, and that they can be a culture catalyst. And right now they're kind of failing at being a culture catalyst.
And when you use that term, you mean a springboard, a starting place, a launch pad for shifts in the organizational attitudes?
Absolutely, all of that, right? They are the stewards of that, or at least they can be. They have some power, a lot of influence, depending upon their role within HR. And if we're not harnessing that, I think as HR professionals, then it's a missed opportunity. So
you're here to issue a challenge to the HR practitioners. Are you here to give them any tools, insight, tips, tricks?
Yes, so the main tool I always think about is, and it sounds really cheesy, but we are the tool, right? Because I can come in and I can train you, educate you, do all the different things, but at the end of the day, you have to actually want to make the changes. You have to see value in that, and if you don't do that, anything I do is going to be useless. So until you make that mindset shift, I can't do my job.
Do you mind just giving me kind of the high overview of what you do now and how you got in the chair?
Sure, it's actually a very interesting story. So I did start out in HR forever ago. We won't count the years because we don't want to talk about that. And then from HR, I actually went into the commercial development space, and I did development work in New York City for 10 years. So I became the COO of the company there, and then we had started a consulting arm. So I started doing some business consulting. Actually found Excel Health Plans because they were looking for a consultant.
Yeah.
So they hired me on.
Yep.
I did some consulting for maybe 3 months, and they said, please come on full time.
Yeah.
So they hired me full time, and
That's
next
awesome.
thing you know, here I am sitting
Were
here.
you doing operational consulting?
Yes, I was.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so now you're sitting in the COO role, right?
That is correct.
That's right.
Yep.
And Excel Health, to me, what's super interesting about what you guys are doing is it's fundamentally self-funded products that look and feel level funded with some member steerage.
Correct.
For example, we talked a little bit about how if someone needs a specific surgery, that's fine, get the surgery. But if you have it in a hospital setting, it's going to cost the plan a lot more than an outpatient surgery center that might be beautiful, very well equipped to do it. And so if we say, all right, how about no deductible here, but yes, deductible there, maybe we can get, at least a certain percentage of the employees to move and to go to these other places. Is that kind of the nutshell?
That's exactly it. And I think for members alike and everybody, healthcare costs are rising.
Yeah.
They continue to rise, right? And I think when you think about the amount that comes out of your paycheck each week, you're not considering the deductibles, the co-insurance. It's a huge cost. So any opportunity that we can provide to give our members an option to basically take control of what they spend their money on for their own healthcare, it just gives them that freedom. And hey, who doesn't like $0, right?
Yes. So, and I think that the big push on like the high deductible health plans back in the day, the idea, what it kind of failed, if you go back to just fundamental econ, elastic and inelastic purchases, to recognize was that, when it's 11 p.m. at night and my daughter's screaming with a fever, I'm just going to go to the closest urgent care, right?
Yes, you
and
are.
so some of these things, the high deductible, all it means is that I might be kind of functionally under or uninsured. Whereas these sorts of steerage plans say do and receive whatever care you want and need to,
Yep.
but for reasons you might not have known, Mr. and Mrs. Employee,
Yep.
the same surgery, perhaps even by the same
I was
surgeon,
just going to say,
in
often
a
by the
different
same
setting,
surgeon. Yep.
just under a different roof, is dramatically, 4, 5, 10x difference.
Absolutely, and most of these surgery centers are beautiful.
Yeah.
They are so much nicer than going to the hospital. You don't have to worry about all of the other sick patients that you would interact with in a hospital setting. So it's the best of all worlds.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the power is in seeing these centers, right, firsthand?
Yes it is.
Do you guys, it's my understanding you have an event that you're going to actually showcase the surgery center.
Yeah, we have an
Beautiful
upcoming
Marina Del
event.
Rey.
Yeah, in July. It's going to be great. We're going to have a couple. We're going to have 3 throughout from July, August, and September. We did one last, I think it was September or October, and everybody who came was just stunned.
Yep.
They really are. They're immaculate.
Yeah, and I think the one I'm aware of at least is July 25th in Marina Del Rey.
Yep.
And the idea is you're going to have the actual providers of care there at the facility to show at least potentially some employer groups, hey, when we talk about steerage, this kind of state-of-the-art place is what we're talking about steering too.
Exactly. They'll bring you around. You'll get to see all the operating rooms and how they do everything. So it'll be great. Come have something to eat, drink, learn some new stuff.
Yeah, sweet. So I think for employers that might be local enough to Marina Del Rey to get out there and be free on July 25th, and or when I assume there's going to be a cocktail or some wine or something. If they're interested in touring, where do they reach out to?
You can send an email to hello@excelhealthplans.com.
hello@excelhealthplans.com.
Yep, and we'll send you more information.
In your estimation of kind of the lay of the land of HR today, what's something that keeps you up at night or something that's kind of on the forefront of your minds?
I would say the biggest thing would be the culture. There are multiple of the organization.
Yeah.
I am doing consulting, and whether I'm doing consulting on a major project for a more mature company or I'm helping a startup company, it all still boils down to the culture of the organization and sort of where they are and where that buy-in is. So ensuring that everyone is in the right mindset for whatever I am trying to.
How do you measure
done.
that? How do you like put your finger in the air and get a sense of the culture?
Several different ways. if I am training them on a certain thing, then of course I can put myself out there, my feet on the fire, and get. You're laughing.
Yeah, well, because I know you're not shy to do it if it needs to be done.
Some training feedback. I can do several different types of surveys. I can do a focus group. So or you can do like Amazon is starting to do right now, is just every day when someone clocks in, they get a question.
Yeah.
And then when they leave, they get another question.
Oh, how interesting.
So, because their turnover was just, it was rigid.
Yeah.
So you can just start to do simple things, micro surveys.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways to start to figure out what needs to change.
And how, when you utilize these tools to figure out that there may be a shift required or recommended, how are some of the what are some of the levers you pulled to actualize this shift?
That's a really good question. So, the majority is what speaks the language, and then there's this another tool that you put in place. It's all in the toolkit.
That's right.
This is figuring out how we're going to do that. There's no wrong, right way of how we do it, but we present this to the C-suite and how the survivor is how we're going to figure it out.
So is that an initial path forward? Is after you've made an assessment, you go, oh boy, I think that the following things should really be addressed. You like to go to the C-suite and sort of start there?
Well, we're going to say what this looks like.
Yeah.
What does this look like? We're going to start with the end in mind and figure out from that end what the steps are going to be like to sort of meet this in the middle. What the return on investment if we do these things and how it's going to happen.
Because you'll maybe identify something, go to them and say, now guys, I've got a recommendation, but I need to know what does your success look like to you, right? Where's the end goal to you?
Yes.
Where do you want this to go?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is my recommendation because this is what I have the numbers look like. Yeah. It's always about the numbers. It's always about
something
the numbers.
about business, huh?
Yeah, I know. It is. So now if it's like a satisfaction survey, you have your employee engagement survey, then you have your customer satisfaction survey. Well, somewhere those are supposed to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And if they're not cohesive, then there's a reason why. So then let's take a step back. And
you mentioned Amazon clock in, clock out stuff, and I've heard other semi-interesting kind of live survey stuff where like maybe you'll have IT kind of put it on people's computer when they log in and stuff like that. You have thoughts on that? You like it? You think
I
it's
do
smart?
like it.
Yeah.
Because you have no choice.
Yeah, right. You want to move on. You want to answer this email. Answer this question first.
Put your feet right in the fire. And it's first thing in the morning. You don't have that much time to think about it.
Yeah.
And you just whatever that is, whatever that looks like, and then when you go home. So hopefully it's not everyone's going to be candid, but a lot of times if employees are fed up with it, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, here.
So that's a good question though, because I imagine their candor is tied at least in some way to their confidence in the anonymity. And I wonder, how do you get employees to really believe that this will be an anonymous survey and this won't be one of those things that it's actually we know who said what and we're a little peeved off about it?
It's a computer, it's not anonymous.
Yeah. But then do you find employees maybe pulling their punches? Because I have that same thought where I go, it's a computer. So darn well, unless you have this third party that really scrambles it, you're going to know it came from me, and I don't want to piss off my manager.
Well, it's about consistency. So if you ask the same question several different ways, there's going to be some consistency on, was this a bad day? Or is this really how this person feels, over several different questions on consistency.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really smart answer to that.
Yeah.
Like you said, asking the same question in different ways, right? And that's what, I don't know, a personality assessment do. They're not going to ask you, are you introvert or extrovert, right? They're going to ask multiple different ways about how you get your juice and how many people and blah, 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 blah. Talk to me a little bit about kind of what you're doing here at the conference, sights and sounds, what you're seeing, what you're liking. Give me like a picture from your vantage point.
Yeah, so I was here to speak. I talk about how to make work suck less.
Yeah, it's great.
Through play and positive psychology. So I just literally finished my talk on the 4-day work week, why we need it.
Yes.
And what's been really interesting about all the conversations we had is like, people need time. They need a break.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we never rested after the pandemic.
So
We've just
can
been
we,
go, go, go
we're
the
just,
whole time.
We're diving into it
Yeah.
because I want to get there. And I actually did an episode on the 4-day work weeks, which
you told me about
go back
it.
and look at. And I don't know that I dived as deeply into the following, and I'd love to get at it with you.
Yeah.
But we've had these technological innovations, right? So I used to have to physically walk a memo down the hall, and now I can send an email. I used to have to do this, that, and the third. And all it has led to historically up until this point has been, great, let's do more work.
Do more work.
Churn and churn and churn.
Yes.
And I wonder your thoughts on the next big labor alleviator being AI coming in and saying, hey, there's a lot of stuff that used to take you longer that now it takes you. Can we use this as an inflection point to say the 100-year-old Henry Ford idea of how many hours per week you should be cranking away when it's not wrenching on a Model T and it's using your brain?
Yes.
If we hit the same deliverables and maybe even more with AI, can we dial back? And what your thoughts are on using this as an on-ramp to that conversation?
This is interesting. Okay, so let me like nerd out historically, right?
Do it.
So first, Henry Ford didn't come up with the 40-hour work week, right? It was all labor that actually figured it out first and foremost.
Sure.
And then Cave got him to cave, so he finally did it. But John Maynard Keynes back in the 1930s expected us to only work 25 to 30 hours based off the technology at the time.
Yeah.
The only reason we didn't do that is because people wanted to buy more refrigerators. They wanted to move to the suburbs and get that nice car. And so there was all this pressure to work more.
Interesting.
But he was like, we could be doing less work back then. He now he projected back in the 30s that now in 2030 we should only be working 15 hours based off the technology. So it's the choice is there.
Yeah.
It's not about whether or not the technology there. It's us.
Yeah.
It's whether we are okay with not working so much.
Why aren't we?
Because it's America and we like just want to be number one all the time. So we're like, we think more GDP means more happiness when we're like 27th in happiness, right?
And probably falling
Right,
from
exactly.
just anecdotally looking around.
I was just saying in my talk, more sometimes is just more. It's not better.
That's right.
And we have to, like, in my opinion, we should be done with organizations that are success at all costs. Because the environment. And it's also not sustainable because we've been asked.
Do you mean like the environment or the literal, like
literally the environment and literally also
the figurative
the
environment?
Because people are burnt out.
Yes.
People don't spend enough time with their families. Like they just did the 4-day work week in Spain, and in Valencia they found that people were going less to the hospital and they were closer to their families.
How long did they run that study for?
They ran that study for like I think a year.
Yeah.
And then UK did a study with
I know that one.
That one
was
61
huge.
companies
And
56 are still doing it.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. So the data's been there. The data's been there for like 10, 20 years.
Okay, so you've obviously studied the matter and are happy to make your opinion clear. You think that the 4-day work week is the right path forward for smart employers?
For most employers, not every employer.
Okay.
So if you have bad management, you're not ready.
Yeah.
Because then you have micromanagers, it's just going to be worse.
Yeah.
If you don't have clear goals as to why you're doing it, you're not ready. If you're not willing to run trial runs and you just think it's just going to fix everything, you're not ready.
But you're talking about things that organizations should have set up, not
already.
Right, and not industries.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
you're willing, if the company's got the things that they should already have in place, you're willing to cast this net over
a wide variety of industries.
Okay.
Let's argue for fast food.
do
Why
it.
would it be successful? Chick-fil-A is off on Sundays.
Yep.
Why do they have more revenue than Taco Bell, Dunkin' Donuts, KFC? They only work, they skip a day. And they're making more revenue? How? Quality of work? And people want to go, right? Manufacturing, I was just talking to someone about manufacturing, like, well, we need the assembly line running all the time. You could do that with 4 days. And right now, people are quitting or leaving work early, so you're paying more overtime, which is actually costing you more money than if you walked it.
And let me keep, I don't want to say argue, because we're going to make the same point, but I'm going to amplify the point to say when we say 4 days, it doesn't even need to be 4 days. What we're actually saying is take the expected weekly hours down to 32. So if you need to run 24/7, run 24/7.
24/7. Just figure out the schedule better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
We're speaking the language, man. Let's go, dude. We got this.
That's my man from Chicago. We got that handshake on point, dude. That's not even rehearsed offline. Okay. So when we talk about this as a smart thing and that the data is kind of, the jury's out a little bit, right? How do we talk to, or do we just wait till a new generation of leaders come in? Ooh. How do you talk to leadership? How do you change a very entrenched thing?
The way I do it is like, okay, 85% of your workforce is disengaged right now. How's that working out? How's your retention? How's your recruitment?
Yeah.
You're complaining about all these things. Well, what do you want to do? Gen Z is going to be 30% of the workforce in 2030. You ready? You ready for that? Gen Alpha is going to be 10%. Do you want to be an early adopter so that you can be in this, or do you want to be a laggard?
It seemed like you were forced,
and basically become
kicking and screaming.
You're going to be the next Sears or Blockbuster. You ready to be Sears or Blockbuster? Like, you're going to get left behind.
The UK study that you referenced that we talked about earlier, some of the employee quotes from that were things like, you couldn't pay me enough to go to a different employer.
Exactly.
And I just look at some of my employer groups and think, what if you can have an employee say, full-chested, you could not pay me enough to work for another employer. Boy, wouldn't you want that level of engagement and retention.
Because they want time.
Yeah, man.
They want, that's what we learned from the pandemic.
Yeah.
People want time.
Yeah.
They don't want to commute 2 hours or 8 years of my life for it. Like, they want, so respect their time. And when you do a 4-day work week, you're also saying this. You're saying, enough with the more, let's do more with less argument. It's in, we're going to have you work less and you're going to get more. You're going to get more productivity, but you'll also get more happiness, more connection, more retention, all these benefits for you as well as for the team.
I think we're probably at a spot where kind of the gig economy, it ain't kind of necessarily paying what it used to, whatever. So there's a lot of folk out there that have been trying to make that side hustle the hustle, that you maybe start becoming that employer with a 4-day work week. There's a whole latent hustle culture out there that'll join your ranks.
Yeah, there's an organization I know in New York that hires specifically actors.
Right.
Because they know they have gigs they got to go to. And because they work around their schedule, they stay for 2, 3, 5 years.
Yeah, and you don't lose all that training and institutional knowledge. And interesting, man. So, obviously the idea here is we're getting lots of people in the booth. I'd love to have you back on. We do deep dive on the podcast, but just, kind of for this sort of highlight reel of folk that this is the kind of quality of content you get at these Power Conferences, right? You're one of an example of a multitude of awesome speakers, and that's why you come to this. Anything else that you'd like to punch before we kind of get out of this kind of tight little teaser chat?
We are celebrating the wrong leaders. There was a study that found that 1% of the population psychotic, 10% of the CEOs are psychotic. That's the study. That's not bad.
Not you, the other ones.
Look it up. But, so why are we celebrating this? Like, I'm sorry, why are we celebrating Lex Luthor? You know who I'm talking about. But like, why are we celebrating that it's not sustainable? Like, their models just burn people out.
Right.
And I get it. Like if that's a model. So if some people like that model, but we know better. Happier employees have better work. Like, why is that so difficult? So we need to start celebrating more CEOs like the Spanx CEO. Who basically, did you know what she did? She
keeps me in my suit. You think this happens on accident, baby?
But when they went public, she gave out first-class tickets to wherever you wanted to fly to and $10,000 bonuses. Right there, you already know where she stands. Why are we not celebrating more CEOs like that? If we do that, it would be so much better.
That's all the time we have for you here on the HIT Podcast this week. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.